Right from the start it looked so promising, and we were never once let down. For things started happening so thick and fast as we travelled to London town. Derek and John and Jim in a room was always going to be fun, for they had 2 hair dryers in one room and not a head of hair on one. Beryl was best with a ferret routine. At rooting she's never inept. 5 minutes is all that it took to find where everything was kept. Picasso was first, but for most of us there it was art with a capital F. Except Jean, who was in raptures. It made me think, was I blind, dumb and deaf? An ambition fulfilled was my visit to Tate. What a wonder they were to see. Those wonderful pre-wrap paintings by Hunt, Burne-Jones, Malhais and Rossetti. On Saturday night, as we all prepared for a night out in the West End, stories were heard of Jim with the ironing. Was he starting a new trend? Saturday night was one to remember, a night at the theatre in West End. Blood Brothers we saw, and great it was too. The Maltesers were safe in the end. But as is the case on these fine occasions, there's always the chance of mishap. For Beryl was intent on having her fun and spilling ice cream on her lap. Then we all went back to the hotel and back to the room where we stayed for a drink and a smoke of something quite wrong, and got quite passively slayed. I wouldn't mind, but that was not all, for when everyone had gone off to bed, 'twas in the middle of the night that Paul tried to climb into my bed. Sunday was brill, an exceptional day, but John had to have the last say. He fell in love with Sarah, our agitprop guide, and hasn't recovered to this day. The star of the show was undoubtedly John, parading himself up and down and talking to strangers beneath brollies and playing the impersonating clown. You should have been there, it was such a treat to see David Hughes sent up so well in an interview with Barry Norman, where he was asked of his life to tell. Do you go out to the pictures, he asked, how often do you manage to get out? But the answer from John was simple, only when Helen lets me out. Then Christine and Jean did their tap dancing bits, stars for the day they became. Lights, camera and action were called as they reached for their glory and fame. So on the whole, what a wonderful tour of the fantasies that we all share. My only regret is that John would not share his own little fantasies there. But then that's another story.